Good morning. You may be seated, yes. Sorry. Please be seated in that. Let me extend my welcome to you, each of you today. I'm Pastor Jackie Ranieri, and I am so glad you are here with us today as I share my last sermon here at Plymouth First UMC. Can I just give a shout out to Dale? Dale, this is our last Sunday together. He hears me, okay. So yes, I will miss our conversations on Sunday mornings as well as with all of you, so thank you. So today, I want to share one of my favorite scripture passages with you and why it's essential in my life, and maybe might even be for your life. But first, I want to share my favorite quote with you, and this is it. You want to make God laugh? Tell God your plans. Think about it. How many of your plans that didn't involve God work out for you? When I taught preschool, I loved asking children what they planned to be when they grew up, and the most popular responses would be a doctor, a mommy, a daddy, a police officer, firefighter, and even the smart ones would say, I want to be a lawyer and make the big bucks. But some of my favorite answers would be a princess or a rodeo rider. I'm sure some of you can remember your plans of what you wanted to be when you grew up as a child. So allow me to ask you, are you doing what you thought you would be doing as an adult? Or for those of you that are retired, have you accomplished all that you planned to? You see, as a child, I really wanted to be a rock star. I thought that's what I was going to be, a rock star. And I would play my toy guitar as I made up songs to perform for whoever the poor person was that said they would sit there and cheer me on as I went on and on and on. You know, I had my toy guitar, my rubber rain boots I would wear because that was the cool thing back then, I guess. But that's what I did. I dreamed of traveling the world, of making lots of money and my name in lights. That's what I thought I was going to be. But as you can probably guess, as I've been standing before you these last 2 years, my childhood dream of being a rock star was just that, a dream. Or maybe God had other plans for me. So now I want to share my favorite passage with you, and it comes from the Gospel of Matthew. And it's verses, or I should say it's Matthew 25, and it's verses 34 through 40. This is what Matthew writes. Matthew writes, Then the king will say to those on his right, Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. And then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? And when did we see you as a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go visit you? And the king will reply, Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. I love this passage. I love it because Jesus gives us step-by-step instructions on what we must do to serve, who to serve, and what it must look like to fulfill this mission. Did you know that this is Jesus' last lecture, his final teaching in the book of Matthew? So undoubtedly, he saved the best, the most important, for last. And what I think Jesus is saying in this passage is what he's been saying throughout his whole teachings and actions. And that is for us to recognize God in the face of those that we encounter. So let's take our neighbors, for instance. You see, when we're loving to our neighbor, we're loving God. And when we're not loving to our neighbor, we're not loving to God. And if we're engaged in abusive behavior toward another, bullying or treating an employee like a slave, that's how we're treating God. And if we hold hatred in our hearts toward one another, well, you get the picture, right? Because the thing is, it's all about the love. So for the Christ follower, there's no room for discrimination, no room for hatred, no room for holding grudges, no room for judgments. It all fits with everything that Jesus has taught us. And the only thing that there's room for is love. And that's why Jesus tells us to pray for our enemies and give food and drink to those who persecute us. And in doing so, we are serving Christ. See, people are fallen and lost creatures, created to be loved and redeemed in God's image. And Jesus says, I tell you the truth, whatever you did for the least of these, you did for me. You see, this is the plan that Jesus taught each of us. We're created in his image. So doesn't that mean that part of the plan for us is to imitate what Jesus taught us? You see, I thought I knew God's plan for me. After college, I planned to work in the hospitality field. And after many years of opening restaurants and working at beautiful resorts, I thought this is where I would end my career. This was going to be my life. This was going to be my purpose. I loved traveling and working at trade shows to promote the latest property I was working at. And you see, all was good until I got married, which is a good thing, and I had my son, which was a better thing, right? But my plan of working in the hospitality field didn't quite so much work out having a newborn son. So after much prayer, I decided my plan was to teach. I spent many years as a preschool teacher and later as a kindergarten teacher. And I truly enjoyed both careers. But I need to confess something. That through all those years, I constantly had this tugging at my heart that I needed to do more. There was something more for me. And I wasn't sure what even any of that meant until we moved to Michigan. And soon after, I answered the call to become a pastor. And it was during that first week being a pastor that I came across Matthew 25. I came across it as my daily devotion. And I have to say, verses 35 through 40 kept tugging at my heartstrings. But the part that really struck me in the passage were the people being amazed at what Jesus was saying. Because I love their response. Because they responded to Jesus with this question. They said, then the righteous will answer him. And it says, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? And when did we see you a stranger and invite you to come in? Or needing clothes and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and go visit you? That just amazes me that they questioned that. Because that day was the day I realized that God's plan for me as a pastor was to seek out those individuals that Jesus is talking about here. I took the mission. I took the mission to find those people who were hungry, thirsty, naked, even a stranger, and I continue to pray and ask God to lead me to your people. Where are these people? Now, I need to warn you about something. You see, when you reveal to God, or I should say, when you pray to God to reveal something to you, be prepared. Because after much prayer, the floodgates opened. And I met all kinds of people. Those people that God kept bringing to my path. And you know what? Great ministry started to happen. And here I thought I was finished. The big plan, right? I fulfilled God's plan for me. But you remember my quote I shared with you in the beginning? You want to make God laugh? Tell God your plan. Because my thought was I found paradise. But I think I really heard God laughing. Because God says, I'm not done with you yet, so hold on. I fed the hungry, continued, and gave water to the thirsty, and visited those who were lonely and those who were homebound. And then I had a vision to start this digital campus with the idea to reach individuals who don't attend church, who lived outside this community. And that's when it became part of the plan to come here to Plymouth First. And that's when the Oasis Virtual Communities was started. But here's another thing. I planned, and I really thought it was part of God's plan. I originally thought that this community was supposed to be some kind of a church service. However, after talking to these people who don't attend church or have issues with organized religion, I realized that a church service was not going to connect them. And we were not going to connect to them as a community. So after attending a few conferences about fresh expressions, I worked with my team to create small group opportunities to reach out to those that are seeking them and considering themselves as Christians, with the idea to form small groups or engage in activities in faith-filled environments. So again, after much prayer and research, Oasis was created. And the goal was to post something daily to create interaction with these folks. And the posts include inspirational memes, motivational thoughts for the day, Oasis Bible Wordle, trivia games, recipes, as well as live prayer devotions, Bible studies, book studies. It was exciting. It was exciting to see how God was working on this campus and getting the opportunity to meet people that I would never have had the opportunity to meet. But the most exciting part was the opening of opportunities within this church here. Opportunities that started to happen. For instance, after a conversation with Kate Westerberg, one Sunday, after crocheting and knitting, we started a group, or say she started the group I attended, called the Fiber Friends. The Fiber Friends was formed. And Kate's been leading this group that gathers at the Plymouth Coffee Bean once a month to knit, crochet, even hand sew little projects together. And at first, there were 4 of us, maybe 5 of us. So then we started inviting somebody. Well, it's gotten to the point now that those that were invited are now inviting, and those that have been invited are inviting as well. So the group is growing. There's probably like 8, 10 each time that they gather each month, and it could be different people. Some are the same people that gather each month, but they're coming together, and they have this mission, this idea. You see, the Fiber Friends made soap sacks, and I remember sharing with you all about the soap sacks. They decided to do that for a project, and they provided for the different shelters, food kitchens, and that. So some of you also helped with the project, so thank you for wanting to be part of that, to be there. But you see, the exciting part is they're still continuing on to meet. They're actually going to meet this next Tuesday. And I can't wait to see, because they're already buzzing about what to do for the fall. They're already talking about what it's going to be. And I can't wait to see the project that they put together, the mission that they have planned for the fall. So I have to say, though, that once things start happening with this campus, it's been great watching it grow. And this is part of God's plan for you and for me. However, it wasn't the last plan that God had for me. See, the plan for the digital campus was for me to start here at Plymouth First for 2 years. And the New Starts team and our district superintendent wanted to see what this campus could do and what the benefits of having a digital campus within our conference would look like. So for the past year, the Oasis virtual community has grown. The team and I have continued to pray. We continue to ask, God, lead us to your hungry, you're thirsty, you're naked, and you're homebound. Lord, show us your lost sheep. And after a few phone calls I started to receive from other conferences asking me how I even do this, what this was even about, they've been hearing about it, they joined the campus to kind of check in. But then I started getting phone calls of, would you consider leaving Michigan? So after much prayer, much discussion, trust me, I accepted the position at Desert Southwest Conference to be pastor of the Green Valley United Methodist Church and also to continue the Oasis virtual community to bring it to the desert. Now, Oasis is about the desert, right? So how fitting for God's plan to put that name in there and then for us to come out and serve the desert. But I do want to say this. I want to say thank you. Thank you to each of you from the bottom of my heart for welcoming Anthony, my husband, and myself into this church. Thank you for taking a chance on something you didn't quite understand, and maybe you still don't understand, but you've been kind about it, so thank you. And thank you all, because without your willingness to have me here, I would not be able to start this community. I would not be able to continue following God's plan for me. But you know what? It's not all about me. Because my prayer is for each of you to follow through what God's plan is for you. Maybe it's to start a small group. Or maybe it's even to be bold enough to start a fresh expression. So as I come to a close here, I want to share a story with you. See, there was a woman who had been diagnosed with a deadly disease, and she'd been given 3 months to live. So as she was getting her things in order, she contacted her pastor and had him come to her house to discuss certain aspects for her final wishes. So she told him which songs she wanted to be sung at the service and what scriptures she wanted to have read and what outfit she wanted to be buried in. And the woman also told her pastor she wanted to be buried with her favorite Bible. Everything was in order. And as the pastor was preparing to leave, the woman suddenly remembered something. There was one more thing, she said, and she was so excited about it. The pastor says, "What's that?" She says, "This is very important. I want to be buried with the fork in my right hand." The pastor looked at the woman, not knowing really what to say, right? And she says, "That surprises you, doesn't it?" The pastor says, "Well, to be honest, I'm kind of puzzled by this request." And the woman explained, "You see, in all my years of attending church socials and potluck dinners, I always remembered that when the main course of dishes were being cleared, someone would lean over and say, 'You can keep your fork.' It was my favorite part of the meal because I knew something better was coming. Velvety chocolate cake or deep dish apple pie, something extraordinary and with substance." So I just want people to see me in that casket with a fork in my hand. And I want them to wonder, she said, "What's with the fork?" And she looks at the pastor and she says, "Then I want you to tell them, keep your fork, because the best is yet to come." I love to share that story because it's so true, right? Yes, there's going to be changes happening here within these next month or so. But there's going to be changes for you, but there's also changes for me. But remember, when things aren't quite the way they used to always be, remember, when things change, the best is yet to come. And I thought how appropriate the story would be since there's going to be cake today, right? So keep your forks, friends, and always remember, the best is yet to come. Amen.